Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us again for this next session. I again am Cate Ambrose of LAFCA, and I have the honor of being on stage here with the Vice President of Panama, who you all know very well, Isabel de Malo de Alvarado. And, you know, we were just speaking, there's been so much discussion around Panama's macroeconomy and growth and some of the main sectors and opportunities. We thought we would take advantage of the opportunity of having the Vice President here to talk about some of the critical inputs to that growth that sometimes don't get mentioned, and some of the key drivers globally, what investors and others are looking for here in Panama. So with that, Ms. Vice President, I wanted to ask you a little bit about how Panama is positioning itself around the Sustainable Development Goals, what you find are the key issues in terms of sustainability here in Panama as you see global investors coming into the country.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for that question. And I know we've been talking about doing business and what we need to look for to do business, and that's very, very important because, of course, we need growth in order for society to advance. But what is growth if we do not have sustainability? It's nothing. What is growth if we do not ensure that the growth represents better days for the population in terms of well-being, education, infrastructure, services? So I think it's very important that countries have a holistic approach to development, promoting growth, investment opportunities for companies, but always looking at it with the major objective, which is better days for the population, which is sustainability. In that regard, we have placed important emphasis on education. We're working hard on training our people, understanding that the opportunities are there, but people need the qualifications in order to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. So we are investing heavily on turning our education to a completely bilingual system. We've trained almost 10,000 teachers, and in the future years, we are hoping to have a 100% bilingual population. This, of course, will not happen in a 1 year, but it's definitely advancing. And as we find more and more multinational corporations establishing themselves in Panama, they find opportunities with the labor force and the qualifications in the labor force. We are also opening pretty soon, actually in a couple of days, a brand new technical institute built on the model of Singapore. It's a state-of-the-art institute that will train our people on logistics, hospitality, services in general, and we are ensuring that this very important investment will mean more competitiveness for our economy, for the businesses that establish themselves here. So that's part of this holistic approach that we have of making sure that our people always have better opportunities and better capacities, because it's like a two-way street, you know, growth and sustainability and development in general.
Yes, well, you're touching then directly on this second topic I wanted to raise of human capital, so critical because you can't bring development money into the country or private money if you don't have the workforce to support that. And when you look at the foreign companies that have come into Panama, have they played a role in training? What have you seen the interaction like of those foreign companies coming into Panama and the labor force here, or have they brought in some of their own people as well?
Our experience actually has been fantastic in that regard. I think it's when you have knowledge coming to the country that many times foreign investment brings, foreign companies brings, and you have a labor force with the correct training, that labor force will be able to take advantage of that knowledge and learn, and it's a revolving effect, and that has been, I think, very important for Panama, and it's one of the things that I think we can gain from each other as we get closer to countries like the UAE, and we promote investment and we promote exchange of ideas, of people, of knowledge. We are learning from each other, and we are promoting growth and mutual development in that regard. And I think that when countries connect, the opportunities for that kind of training are exponential for the population, and in the case of Panama, that has been very, very important for us.
Great. And of course, the example of Singapore, another great sort of city-state that is incredibly developed for its size, so interesting comparison with Panama. How do you develop that relationship with Singapore to bring them into this innovation center here, and where else have you looked globally for inspiration for projects here in Panama around innovation?
Well, this institute, we saw the model in Singapore. We've worked with them the whole way through the process in the developing of the infrastructure, and more important than the infrastructure, the development of the curriculum itself and the training of the teachers. As we found that we have been growing for so many years, and our service sector has been getting stronger and stronger, and our logistics sector has been getting stronger, we do find that we need more people trained in order to have the capacities for these activities. And as we find, for example, that we have a major airline that connects the region, and this airline is constantly opening up new routes, where are the pilots to drive these airlines? And as we build new ports and new facilities for value added to merchandise coming through the canal and through our ports, where are the trained people for this logistics service? So we are sure that this investment that will be inaugurated in a couple of days' time, with this support from Singapore that we appreciate very much, will be very strong, because we're working with a model that has been proven. We're working with a country that has this experience, has had the experience for many, many years, learning from their experience, incorporating it into our model, and as countries always need to climatize other experiences to their own reality, and we've done that. I'm sure that learning from another experience that has already had successes, has already had failures, will bring us faster to what we're looking for, which is that institute at full capacity, completely contributing to the economy, to companies, Panamanian or foreign, that do invest in our country and are looking forward to grow.
And what do you think Singapore was looking at for out of a project like that? What do you think their hope or expectation is for that project?
Well, actually, we went looking for it. It was not the other way around. We have a strong relationship with Singapore as well. Our economies are similar, and they have presence in Panama as well, their private sector. So I guess if they had been looking for something, but I really think it was the other way around, that we were looking for the model, I think the objective would be to collaborate for this continued strengthening of a platform that provides a service that creates new capacities, new opportunities for the region, for the world.
Great. And speaking of capacity and human capital, of course, diversity is a critical piece of that as well. Oh, I'm seeing that very much from global investors with, hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to invest. It's not, let's tick the box to see that we're addressing gender diversity, but they really care that there are diverse teams where they're putting their money. So what is your agenda around that here in Panama? How are you thinking about diversity and gender issues in the development of the labor force?
Well, Panama is a very diverse country, not only, of course, in terms of gender, but in terms of our population. And I think diversity is key and is central. The world is diverse. So if companies wish to respond to market needs and demands, it's only natural that the offer is diverse as well. And the only way to ensure that is to include. Gender, I like to emphasize, as much as it is, and of course it is an issue of rights, that's really not the reason why we should ensure gender balance. The reason why we should ensure gender balance is because it makes sense. It just makes no sense not to. It makes sense in terms of economics. If companies want to ensure that they respond, as I have mentioned, to the market and make better decisions, they need to include that 50% of the population who actually, more than not, makes the decision-making, the decisions in terms of market and consumption. But more than that, in terms of GDP, if we intend to grow faster and have better services, we need to include 100% of the population. We're just not going to get where we want to go if we do not include 100% of the population. In terms of development, if we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, gender balance is one of them. But gender balance is one of them that is transversal. It can be a power machine. It's actually, I think, the key to ensuring the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals faster. Once again, because how are we going to achieve development if we leave out 50% of the population? According to some organizations, I believe OECD, the growth in GDP, if women were included in parity, would be something like $6 billion. I mean, there are numbers behind why it makes sense to be inclusive. And in terms of inclusion in general, financial services, minorities, indigenous groups, Afro-descendants, we need to ensure more and more that companies have this approach of why it makes sense to be inclusive in general.
Great. Are there any specific opportunities, challenges, or initiatives that you would share from this administration, or even your own positioning in the rest of Latin America or the world around diversity and gender? Anything that you would point your finger at as an opportunity or a challenge going forward?
Well, some initiatives that we've taken here in Panama to ensure more gender balance. We have passed legislation to ensure an increased number of women at boards of directors. When we look at boards of directors in Panama, and this is no different from boards of directors in other countries, I regret to say, there is a very limited participation of women, even though women participate of the labor force. So we did pass a legislation to ensure at least 30% participation of women in boards of directors of government companies and regulated companies. And we think that this will be the first step to what should happen eventually, which is an equal footing participation. In terms of minorities, I think we have still a long way to go. We've done some public policies regarding minorities in Panama. It's important to consider in terms of education, in terms of opportunities, and also the issue of just promoting inclusiveness in order to change mindsets. It's also important, because we might think that we do not discriminate, but the reality is that we are all in the world there has been discrimination forever, for religion, for gender, for the color of your skin, for being a minority, for your beliefs, and there still is discrimination, but we don't realize it. Many, many times we just don't realize it. So I think we need to continue to work in order to make that, to make us realize that there is discrimination, because it hinders development, because it hinders growth, and it hinders opportunities. And There are challenges in terms of discrimination in Panama, like there are in other parts and other regions of the world. I do believe that we've gone a long way. Panama has been a very, as I've mentioned, a very diverse country forever, and perhaps some issues of discrimination that are stronger in other countries are not so strong here, but we still need to continue to work at that. And I think companies and the private sector can also look at that and find out what's the reality within their companies. Going back to gender, we champion the Equal Pay Coalition launched by ILO, OECD, and UN Women. An Equal Pay Coalition promotes something so simple that we wouldn't even believe that happens, that sometimes men and women do not receive the same salary even though they perform the same job. And as private companies have gone through their numbers to find out if there is not equal pay within their company, they are shocked to find out that they have the problem. They don't even know it. And they might, if you ask them, they might respond immediately, of course we have equal pay. But once they do an analysis, one of the problems that we have in terms of gender and in terms of minorities and inclusion in general is lack of data. If we look at the issue of financial inclusion, which was referred to this morning and is very, very important, there is not enough data. Same thing with gender. Well, once companies decide that they're going to look into this, they're shocked with the results. So we need to continue to really dig in into things and find out where we are in order to promote what's right and what's better for growth and for development.
That's great. And looking forward in that same context, you're coming to the end of this mandate. There are presidential elections coming soon, but that doesn't mean that there won't continue to be a raft of opportunities for investment and maybe some that are coming up now. Can you just share a little bit about some of the new projects that will be available or they're going to be tendered for investors under the new administration and going forward?
Well, Panama has been growing, and projections by international organizations is that we will continue to grow at this rate for the following years. So more likely than not, following governments will have the resources to continue the large infrastructure investment projects that Panama has been having. So you will find, for example, in the following months and years, the opening of bidding processes for new port facilities and logistics facilities around the canal area in the Pacific side. This is a particular project that the Panama Canal Authority has that promotes to develop 1,200 acres of land around the canal devoted to logistics and services and facilities and energy and transshipment. So there will be huge opportunities there. Also, we will continue with the metro project. The line 3 of the metro has been approved, and there will be opportunities in that regard as well. As you look into the maritime air connectivity, there will continue to be projects because the economy continues to grow. Countries and companies are increasingly looking at Panama for their foothold to the region, and this will continue to represent that we need to strengthen our services, and just keep your eyes open, because for those of you that want to come to Panama and be a part of these opportunities, there will be many, many options in different sectors of the economy for you to participate and be a part of this success.
That's great. Well, I think that's a wonderful note to end on. It's been a real pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I've been asked to ask you all to please stay in your seats because we're going directly into the next panel on free trade zones.